It's so ugly. It's gonna be a hard time, genuinely, everyone here, to make this without laughing, right? So first when I saw the image here, and I mean it sincerely, I didn't think it was real, okay? I didn't think it was real. I did not think it was real! Okay? When I first saw it, like, Mr.Freeze, and it's just so incredibly ugly. I like that it does hairstyle. The reason I want to make this video here, guys, is because we all know that Suicide Squad is a game that is dead right now. Yeah, no one ever bought it, no one's buying it now, and no one is certainly not gonna buy it after now that Mrs.Freeze, instead of the iconic character Mr.Freeze, right, from the Batman Taz, one of my all-time favorite shows, commented later. But it really reminded me of a game that I worked on maybe like 7 years ago now. God, I feel old saying that, right? Like I worked on games over like 10 years ago and so on, feels old saying that. Where we had the same thing, right, with the uglification of every character. And I have to say, of course, I'm not breaking any new ground here, I suppose, but I want to make the video a little bit about talking about, like, no one, right? No one wants to play this character. No one wants to play the ugly character, and I mean both men and women and trans and ones. Commented later, but honestly, guys, I'm so tired of these kind of things in video games, right? Because no one wants to play this. Not men, not women, not trans, whatever, yeah, not non-binary. No one wants to play this super ugly thing, right? For the video, guys, please subscribe. Please like me, helps out, right? She had my Yasuke was a waifu and so on last week. But now then, we're talking about Stellar Blade again, a little bit. It was a good comparison. A new patch Stellar Blade. Suicide Squad, which is still on the template, I guess. But generally, just like, no one wants to be ugly. But I will make a little bit about the trash issues, so suppose, honestly. Because for me, right, it's also been a very clear issue why trans suicide isn't going down after the operation, which is kind of fitting for, I guess, a Suicide Squad game video, right? But anyway, let's get into it. First, for some backstory then, right? So Mr. Freeze is an iconic villain, of course, from Batman. He wasn't actually created in Batman the animated show, but that's really where he went popular. Because they rewrote him, it was about his wife and so on. It's a very good, very nuanced character in the classic Batman the animated show. And now, of course, he turned into a gender-bender woman instead. And honestly, I have no problem, right? And I really want to put out there, I have no problem with ice ladies. After all, we already have, of course, Killer Frost, right? A well-established lady with ice power. A lot of different versions of Killer Frost, right? For example, in The Flash, in Injustice, and so on. If anything, that's again speaks to the whole woke, whatever you want to call it, right? It's like, why not just have Killer Frost instead, an established ice lady, and having, like, a female version of Mr. Freeze, Mrs. Freeze, it just feels really forced and pandering immediately, right? But of course, the bigger is that Killer Frost actually looks really cool. She also had a really good design, looks badass. Another character I love for the matter is Livewire, right? Also popular in the Superman task. I think it's one of the coolest DC characters of all time. But instead, we get this, right? We get this super, like, kind of, I don't know, like, chubby Mr. Freeze. And it's just, it so much speaks to the time we are in right now, right? I mean, honestly, I don't care about this game at all, right? Of course, we're going to play Suicide Squad, right? But I say with like a huge site, right? It really is like, again, why not use Killer Frost for? Killer Frost, an established woman with ice powers. Because, I mean, from a game mechanic standpoint, right? Let's just ignore all the politics. It's from a gamer development standpoint, game design, game mechanics, and so on, right? We all, of course, I think, understands, right, that freezing stuff, either freezing magic or freeze tech or whatever, is a very common game mechanic, right? You can freeze your enemies, you can stop them, maybe some time abilities, and you can slow them down, and so on, right? So this is all well established, right, in a video game setting. So having like an ice-based villain in this, like, game where you fight monsters, that makes sense. That's been done before, right? That was creative, but I mean, it makes sense. It's like a fundamental part of a lot of video games with, ice stuff. So it makes perfect sense, right? But again, then, the most popular and established, like, actual ice female character is Killer Frost, right? She's a well-established female character. I showed you, for example, right, how Caitlin Snow becomes Killer Frost in The Flash, right? A TV series that I think is pretty good. I haven't seen every season. I've seen the first, like, 5 or whatever. And, she's a pretty popular character. And again, established in the TV show and so on, right? It's like, why don't you just have her, right? You know, I like this of her. Why take this like, oh, we need to have like a trans character or something, or gender bender character or something? I don't even know. I mean, it's just like, that is, I mean, obviously it is very similar to the whole we saw last week with Yasuke, the not real samurai character, right? Where it's like, yeah, of course you picked the only black guy in Japan because you couldn't just have a Japanese man. You had to pick, you know, the ice woman. But honestly, I think this makes really no sense, right? It feels incredibly weird, especially again how there is no one has ever heard about Mrs.Freeze, right? There is one version of her in, like, for example, the Harley Quinn TV show with Kaylee Cuoco doing Harley Quinn. In that show, Mrs.Freeze basically takes over after her husband instead. She kind of hates him. There's other guys, and she has some ice stuff, some episodes. So Nora, his wife then of Mr. Freeze, her being a villain or a bad guy, or maybe even arguably a good person with ice powers, or ice technology then rather, it has been a little bit established. But again, this isn't even her. This is Victoria Freeze. So this is not even her. This is like an alternative universe Mr. Freeze that is a woman. So it's not. This is so far-fetched. It is so crazy. It's like they want to lose money. They call the Suicide Squad. So I guess they're committing the deleting themselves. Like, it makes no sense. Like I said, this is not even Nora Fries. It's not Mr. Freeze yet. It's not his wife. There's also been established having his tech sometimes, right? And even TV show or what? No. It's a Mr. Freeze from another universe that is a woman. It's like, oh my god, why not just have at least have his wife then, right? And then you can at least write it in that maybe she's angry because her husband died and she wants revenge or whatever, right? So now she's out here because she got his suit on. She wants revenge for her poor husband because he tried this thing and whatever, right? But usually Nora is actually also care about him. Yeah, Nora established also care about him. Interesting. I actually think Nora's a good written character in most of the shows. Why isn't it Nora for? Honestly, am I the only one? I hate this in so many levels. I think it's so pandering, it's so stupid. But I also hate it on like general like, why don't have the established Mrs. Freeze? Why have another Mrs. Freeze? Yeah, or why not have Killer Frost? Right? Yeah, it's just like no. When I saw it, I thought it was a joke first because it really looks like the most stereotypical, like, you know, Vogue bullshit. Her hair is, yeah, it looks like the most obvious, like, you know, like, yeah. I thought it was fake first, yeah. I thought it was fake, seriously. But anyway, let's go to the main topic then. I want to go to context here, but I really want to point it out. I just don't get it. It's like, I mean, end of the day, right? It feels like Warner Bros. Wants to lose money, like, seriously. Because you're like, what, I mean, really? And comparing them, right, to this game here, of course we have Stellar Blade, right? I think it's so funny because today Stellar Blade has a new patch coming in. This is some new outfits, some censorship, whatever, right? This is obviously gonna sell way more than this thing. Let's just be honest here. This has been announced on the same day here. This, like, Warner Bros. Wants to lose money. They already lost like $200+ million on Suicide Squad, and their resolve is to have Mrs. Genderbender Other Universe Freeze, not even Nora, Mr. Freeze, not even his wife, another Mr. Freeze from another universe, and this is what the Koreans are doing. They're like, boobs. They're like, yeah. It is such an incredible difference, right, between these companies, right? And one of them is like, it's a popular, well-beloved game, Stellar Blade, high-rated, very good game. I admit it's a very great game, and the other game is like, everyone hates it, like, see people playing it. I mean, I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. How? They already said that they lost so much money on it. Like, why just trying to make some money on it? This might sell something. It was like, again, I mean, at least Killer Frost might have sold some copies, right? You know, it was like a sexy Killer Frost in the game. At least someone might buy this. They're like, oh yeah, it's hot Killer Frost. But okay, let's buy it because he's a waifu, right? At least, you know, Killer Frost waifu would have sold at least something. Especially because, again, Killer Frost is established, right, as quite like the younger, aggressive waifu, right? So she actually has a lot of fans, right? So actually might people that bought it. Like, it just doesn't make any sense from any, like, monetary standpoint. You're like, yeah, you're gonna lose more money, guys. But let's go into the full topic. And that's that no one wants to be ugly, right? You know. And again, maybe I should have it earlier in the video. I don't care. This is my video if I do it. I like to first, you know, start out with, okay, let's talk about the current political or whatever, cultural event. And then we try to, you know, go from this cultural event, current event, super ugly Mrs. Freeze, into an actual issues of life, right? This is where I make these videos, whatever, leave a comment below what you guys think. But anyway, my point then, and the main issue of the video, right, is that no one wants to be ugly, right? I said it so many times before, but it's like no one actually wants to play an ugly video game character. I mentioned earlier in the video, it is incredibly well established that both women and men, right, prefer this kind of look, like a badass, hot-ass waifu chick, right, to this thing, right? And some super ugly, bloated monster, like androgynous gender thing that just looks really, really weird, has this really boring hair. It's just boring, so ugly, right, This is not attractive for anyone. It doesn't matter if you are a man or a woman or trans or whatever, non-binary. No one actually wants to play it. Something like Stellar Blade, it has a super hot waifu. This is what actually every woman basically, it's like 99% of females prefer playing even Stellar Blade, hot waifu with a cool katana, slicing down monsters than an ugly fatso. People want to be this cool ice chick, right? This is how it could have looked. That would be popular. And I think this is important to understand, right? That who actually wants to play a fatso, right? Because think about here, Livewire, which I think is one of the coolest bad girls right this comic, right? She's friends with the Killer Frost, and they have similar looks and so on. They actually have very similar looks in some of the books or whatever. But like this is hot, right? She's an electric lady. She's cool. She's aggressive. She takes no, she's a badass, right? She's a badass lady, right? So if you're a woman, you might want to be her, right? Because she's brave, she's powerful, she's strong, got a very cool power, right? Electric power is very popular, right? One of the best powers to have. She can go into power, electric stuff in modern sites. It's very powerful, of course. It's in other stuff as well. But also, she's again, like I mentioned, aggressive. She is, dominatrix, whatever, right? Yeah. So women wants to be her, right? And men wants to be with her, right? This is a character that everyone rather want to be. But if you make her really fast, let's make her super fast, right? No, that's going to be way less people actually want to play that fat guy, right? Or that fat girl or whatever. It doesn't matter. And the thing is that it's a very interesting study on trans people. It's 25 years ago when they asked these male to females then, right? Or like people that are born as male, they want to be female, they haven't done the gender surgery yet, right? Almost all of them, like over 90%, they all assume, right, that when they are a woman, they're gonna have this kind of body, right? They're gonna have a nice titty, nice boobie, nice ass, right? That's what they all imagine, right? No, that's a huge thing. Yeah, everyone that wants to be gender bender, trans, and so on, right? Basically, everyone imagines themselves as an attractive version, right? Of the female outcome, so to speak, right? If you change gender, everyone is imagining this is what I turn into. If I was a woman, I would have this kind of body. You know what I mean? That's what everyone is imagining, right? You have to understand that. Everyone basically imagine if they change gender, they're gonna be hot, right? And this is actually something that's been very well established. And like I keep saying, right, I said before too, the main reason, or at least one of the biggest factors, why suicide rate for trans people isn't going down after surgery, of course, is because they are disappointed in the surgery, right? They're disappointed in how they look, but also mostly they all have, not all, but all of them have this in mind, right? That I'm gonna be a popular hot waifu when I transform into a woman, right? But of course they aren't, right? Because most of them doesn't get this kind of body. So they don't actually have that, and then they're disappointed and the suicide rate doesn't go down, right? It's very, very obvious. You have an operation, and you have this pedestal idea that if I change gender, I'm going to be so attractive and hot, right? And it doesn't really pan out for most people. And of course, for some of them, it does, right? But for a lot of them, it doesn't. And it's an obvious way to really understand why having surgery might not help you, right? But actually, and I want to point it out here, I'm not against trans people having surgeries and whatnot, right? But I'm against that idea that a surgery will fix you immediately, where actually, like, just physical training or whatever actually might help more, right? Honest. So here's an example I experienced myself working in this field, right? So many years ago, this is like 15 years ago, man, I'm old. I was still in college. I was interviewing this person that was born as a man and wants to be a woman, right? Okay, female, male to female, typical transgender, nothing out of the ordinary, right? And this person hasn't done the surgery yet. She wants to do the surgery and so on, So I'm interviewing her for kind of like, okay, what do you like, hobbies, whatever, right? My behavior science stuff, right? And of course, my point here is that this woman, in currently a man body then, but doesn't matter really, is really, really obese, okay? Like, this is a really, really, really fat person, right? Of course. And I talked to this person. They have this idea that, oh, but if I'm a woman, right, then I would be like live. I'd be hot. I would have great, oppies and have a, hourglass figure, right? And I'm just like, why, right? I'm like, why would you have that, And I questioned them because it wasn't just I wasn't there for doing some medical exam or whatever. I'm there to question them. I'm not question their ideas, but more like I'm there to like understand how they think, how they motivate themselves. I'm a game theorist, okay? First and foremost, I'm a behavior scientist with game theory. I predict people's behavior. So I'm just like, but why do you think you would be not fat if you were a woman, Because you're like really fat now. I like trying to be nice. I was like, you're really, really obese right now. Like, why would you be like super thin if you were a woman? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And obviously, if this person, right, change gender, right, and they operate themselves and they remove their whatever, right, it's still gonna be really, really obese because they are actually factually really, really fat currently. So even if they change gender, they're just gonna be really fat as the other gender, right? And of course, it's like, oh no, but that's a woman I'm attracted to. No, that's the thing, right? People have this tendency to always believe that if they change gender, they can be popular, but also be attractive, right? It's a massive, massive thing. Even if they're extremely obese currently, they have this idea in their head that if they had been no gender, they would have been attractive and slim as a gender. So first of all, no one wants to be fat, okay? No one wants to be fat. No one actually wants to be fat. That's the first thing I guess you can think. But also the whole idea that you could argue, suppose, that this woman, she's arguing that if she was born as in a female's body, she would not be as depressed or whatever. She would take care of her. And there is some truth to that. I agree with that. She probably would have a better life, whatever, right? If she was born as a woman immediately and it wouldn't be like that. But end of the day though, you don't have to be fat just because you're, yeah. And I think that's usually, for me, right, when it comes to people, just doing the surgery, unfortunately is seen as a quick fix for people, right? Like they imagine that, oh, I'm also gonna lose all my fat and personality, charisma, whatever, right? But it doesn't fix all your other issues, right? And anyway, coming from that then, extrapolate that back to video games, right? Let's do a full circle here, right? No one wants to be fat and ugly. Everyone wants to play the hot chick, I keep saying it. Livewire, I will kill the Frost then, right? But this is basically how I would imagine she could look in the game, right? This is what I would imagine, right? If you have this female character in the video game, like I said earlier, right? You either want to be her, if you're a woman, badass, dominatrix, ice lady, right? Or you want to be with her, right? If you're a man, you know what I mean? And again then, important to understand, even if you're trans, right? A male to female, they also want to have this body, right? If you're this is the truth. You want to have this, right? You don't want to have this body, right? When you change your gender, if I had to be honest here, anecdotally, if I change gender, I want to end up looking like this, yeah. Like, it's no secret, guys. If I had a gender surgery, I want to have this booty after I finish up, I don't want to be that. I want to have this look, bare minimum, yeah. This I could live with, I can live with looking like this, yeah. But I don't want to end up like this, right, I don't want to end up like this. No one actually wants that, right? And I think that's just a common thing, right? And if you extrapolate that seriously, even more so, let's extrapolate it from being fat or ugly or whatever. But I really mean to put on a stand, right, that no one, no women, no non-binary, no queer, whatever, actually wants to play really ugly characters, right? Fatso characters. No one wants to play that, right? And of course, like I said, the uglification of the game industry is a very, very big thing in the Western industry, right? I'm not forgot to say that. It's just really annoying, right? It's really, really annoying. And like I said earlier, I don't get it. I don't get how Warner Bros. Is down like $200+ million, and no one is buying the game. Everyone hates the game, and the game is terrible from a game mechanic. The game is just terrible. So it makes sense though. And they're like, oh, the solution is to make really ugly decent characters. That's gonna fix it, right? It's gonna cost them more money. Yeah, this is gonna cost more, right? You have the server still going, and some artists are making these things. It's gonna cost more money. It doesn't make any sense. I guess to be fair, maybe this certain figure here, Mrs.Freeze, maybe it was already in the pipeline before the game completely collapsed. Very likely so, being the first DC character, I believe. So I think so. She's the first DC, right? There might be some patch in between, but so that's probably true. She probably was already half finished when the game was like being released and then bankrupting. As a side note, don't forget that Suicide Squad also was delayed for a time, and I actually even know the design director. Yeah, we're like not close friends, but I'm friends with the design director. Jesus Christ, man. So I know about this for a long time. I heard a lot about the stories, right? But it certainly is sad in a way in that sense too, right? That even delayed this game for about a year or so, half a year at least. I can't remember exactly, but for a while at least, and it still ended up being like one of the worst games released this year, right? Yeah, it's an insanely terrible game. It's a really, really bad game, right? But it's just weird, man. Like, what's the point in this thing? But like I said, perhaps they already had this character almost finished, so it's like whatever, let's release it. But no one's gonna buy it, right? No one in the right mind is gonna buy this thing. It's just, and it's also kind of weird too because I mean, I don't think that the gameplay of that game, regardless of being bad or good, I don't think the gameplay of Suicide Squad really like pulls in people that would like this thing. Like whoever would that be? But like I don't really think so. Not the demographics. But whatever, I digress. But yeah, the uglification is a real thing though, and I said it earlier in one of my older videos about my own experience in the gaming industry. But when I was working then, this is 17, yeah. So 7 years ago, I was working on a game, and we had the main character with actually kind of similar body to Livewire here, because she has like the hair sideburn off and so on, and she was a lesbian. So yeah, I was the game writer, right? So no, I mean, it's so funny too because in this game then she was one of the main characters. She was like lesbian straight up in the storyline. And all this stuff, right? A little bit like a bias post, but it was like completely like very progressive character. She had like a tomboy look, you know, she was muscular because you know I like muscular characters. So she was a muscular waifu with like, you know, good body shape, like very similar to this image honestly, but more muscular a little bit, and so on, right? And you know she had like a short hair, but like cut off hair, sideburn, and all that stuff, right? So she was very like progressive, honestly. She was very, very progressive. Yeah, and this was also 7 years ago, right? So I was quite early on my, like, I was progressive before it was cool, you know? But, as I mentioned, right, this character had, of course, a muscular abs, right? A stomach, because you know I love muscular characters in my own art. I always give my female character huge muscular abs, that's my thing. That's my thing, and I stand by it, you know? I love my muscular abs, okay? I love muscular abs. So I designed this character, and I wasn't the artist, I was a lead creator, and then the artist guy did her. And she's a red-haired muscular lady with, you know, muscular abs, right, you know. And she was at this for 2 years in the game's development. And then the month before we're gonna release the game, one of the like investor, like our some kind of like person working on the investment company, one of the investors, plays our game with our studio, right? And she's just like, nah, the game is too sexy, you know, it's too hot, you know. And then she complains about that to the COO. And then the next day he calls me, you have to remove the midriff on this lady. Like, what? Like, I have to remove her muscles? So I said it before probably, but yeah, I got forced to like censor these like muscular lesbian tomboys, yeah, like remove her muscles. Or the art ended up just like, you know, covering up her stomach. He ended up just like, she had the same clothing, but instead of having like a short, you know, instead of, you know, revealing her muscles, her tummy was very muscular, yeah. The cloth just went down to her legs, etc. So just, yeah, ended up just like covering her up basically. And to me that was like, okay, I can't even make like muscular lesbian tomboys anymore. I was like, oh my god, this is so bad. I'm leaving the industry tomorrow. No, this is a true story. It's 100% true. 100% true. It's crazy. So I mean, I've seen this uglification of you know, gaming characters for so many years, right? But I think it's funny, and I really mean it. Literally, like I said, she was a lesbian tomboy. Okay, she was a female main character on one of the fashion game. She was very, very progressive. You know what I mean? Like, she was like straight up like progressive writing here and everything. And not even she could show some muscles. And even, yeah, that was a weird too. But I was like, but it's like a tomboy. Like a bodybuilder, like muscular tomboy too. I was like, I can't even have this in games anymore. What the hell? It was so weird. I was like, oh come on. She checked every box, you know. Otherwise, yeah, it was very strange. But anyway, that's true, 100% true. And like I said, right, I probably said it before in my video, but you get those experiences all the time. I've seen it for many years, right? That game is incredibly ugly for the matter. I hate the game in so many ways, but that's one reason I hate the game, because not only was it censored with like that female character, but there was also other stuff too that the game is just bad in, because not really like, I say it, sexual power, so to speak, but it's more like he's a monster, and the monster has to look ugly too. So I wanna extrapolate it a little bit, right, so to speak, because I think people tend these days to focus on the uglification, right, of video game characters, and it usually, of course, is feminine characters, right, like Livewire can be ugly and fat, right, in the next game, or whatever. That's usually how it is. But actually, I think it goes beyond that, because like in my game there, I had to really fight, with my tooth and nails, right, to also make the monsters look cool, right. This is a Western company, and I just want to have like a dragon. Just give me like an ice dragon, right, with cool breasts or whatever. And so I get like a blob or something, yeah. Like this is so weird too. So I feel the artist and everyone is so afraid of what this works, people actually like. They also want to be artsy fartsy and so on. So all the monsters also looked unsexy, so to speak, right? I think but uglification actually goes way beyond just having ugly female characters, like fat female characters. It's also like, no, the dragon has to be fat too, The dragon has to be fat, the ogre has to be fat, everyone has to be fat. Every monster has to be ugly too. It is really, it's gone way far beyond just having that female characters can't have big op-eyes or whatever. No, it's way worse than that. It's monsters too, and of course also male characters, right? Which is interesting, because of course when you see a character like Yasuke, obviously he can be attractive, of course, because for obvious reasons, right? But if it was an Asian guy, he probably wouldn't be. And let's be honest here, this probably wouldn't. Honestly, like it wouldn't. If they made an Asian male character in that game, he probably wouldn't be as muscular and as attractive and so on. Let's be honest here, it probably wouldn't. But I digress on that point. I get the point that both men and women are uglier today, and no one wants that, because same thing, right? Like women wants to be this woman, and men wants to smash this woman, right? That's how it is, right? And if you're an attractive male character, right, or a muscular male character, so or both or whatever, right, so to speak, of course, same thing there. Men wants to be them, women wants them, you know what I mean? And it's the same thing with like if you're trans too. That's why I'm so bothered by it too, because every time, and we bring this up, right, that no one wants to be ugly, no one actually wants to be fat, everyone wants to be attractive and so on, right? Every time you bring it up, people are always like, oh, but what about the non-binary and queer and trans and so on? Well, yeah, if you're trans, you even more so usually do you want to be really attractive. As I mentioned earlier, right? I would say so, because I'm generalizing here, but I would say that trans people tend to be even more interested, of course, in looking really fine, right, for the other gender, right? So if you're trans, male to female, you want to be an attractive woman, right? You know what I mean? You want to be a hot woman, right? If you're a female to male, you want to be a muscular, hunky guy, right? Same thing there, yeah. It's not like if male to female, right? Female to male. People that want to be man, right? That are born in another way around. Do you think they want to become like a scrawny little guy? It's like 5 feet tall. No, they also, of course, most dream of being like me, big, strong, But but of course they do, yeah. They rather want to be. So I'm quite tall, right? I'm quite big, I got big abs or whatever, yeah. Of course, that's what they imagine, right? The same thing, of course. It goes both ways, right? It's obviously easier to compare the male going to women, because that's a common thing. Easy to explain, right? You want to be a hot babe, whatever, yeah. But of course, the women, they go from female to man. They also want to, they want to be a muscular dude, right? Yeah, with beard and so on. Yeah, you know what I mean? That, of course they do. Yeah, of course, it goes the exact same way there, right? No one wants to be this like scrawny little dude either, or like a really obese guy or whatever. I mean, anyone, same thing there. No one wants to be, obviously. Why do I even have to say that, right? No one wants to be a really fat guy, No one wants to be that biggest loser contester, right? Of like 700 pounds or whatever. No one wants to be that, right? A man doesn't want to be that. There's no man that actually wants to be that fat, right? On the same time, there is no person that is born in the wrong body, so to speak, the wrong gender, that was changed into a man and they want to become really, really super obese. No one wants that, okay? No one wants that. It's super obvious, yeah. It's super bad. But I think it's interesting to understand that just, like I said, no one wants to be fat or ugly or whatever, but also that just the uglification it keeps going, right? Because I'm not surprised having like my tomboy's muscles being censored because no, it's too sexy or whatever. Yeah, of course, yeah, completely. Doesn't surprise me, right? But I think it's kind of funny now that I see it all the time. I think everything is uglier too. The monsters get uglier, the dragons is uglier, yeah, the ogres is etc. Yeah, I think it goes all over the place, you know. It's like some kind of hatred against aesthetics, but I think that's just like an over. It's probably a weird way for these people to overcorrect, so to speak, because they, for example, a very standardized way to look at beauty is symmetry, right? You know, like symmetry. You know, you have your eyes, whatever, in the same length, your teeth or whatever, right? Symmetry is beautiful for humans because it makes sense, right? You know, like things are where it's supposed to be, it's parallel and so on, right? It just makes sense for your brain. So usually, you know, symmetry, women with symmetrical faces are seen as, you know, like conventional beauty or so on, right? It just makes sense. So I think stuff like that is also why we see an uglification of just everything, because it's just like, well, yeah, I mean, like, you know, a dragon is symmetric, right? It has two wings and so on, right? You know what I mean? So it's like, no, this makes some ugly monster, because honestly, when I worked in that game, I was more bothered in the end by all the monsters and all the robots and whatever, just looking really ugly. Yeah, no, but seriously, because it was like that thing with everything, you know? It was like, no, we can't have like a normal, like we said, one enemy, or also playable, I guess, but mostly enemy, was a centaur, okay? So we had in my design spec, right, we had this like mechanical centaur. So it's like, you know, I assume everyone's a centaur, is, you know, half horse, half human, right? So we have a centaur, and he has a lance and everything. He's like a, you know, like a chivalry centaur, right? And he's a mecha centaur. Okay, that was pretty cool, honestly, I think. But instead, the artist, they all got into this huff and puff, like, oh no, it's boring, chivalry centaur, and some robot that believes in whatever, Christianity or whatever. That's wrong, you know, we can't have that. So instead, they made this like really weird, like pyramid polygon thing. They shoot a laser, and it just didn't make any sense. So we fought with that for 2 years. Okay, it didn't make any sense. Stuff like that. They're like, no, we don't want to make that. It's too attractive. And like, what? Attractive? A centaur? But that's honestly how it was. They're like, no, we can't just give you a cool centaur. That's like cool and ordinary. But I also think that's kind of a main reason, right, why we have this like the war on beauty, right? You know, the uglification of everything is because, like I said, right, it is easy for these people to say that, no, you can't have like a chivalrous centaur. That's like an ordinary cool thing, right? They rather have this like weird polygon monster thing because that's just ugly, it's like unique and cool or whatever. But no, it isn't, because the reason like a chivalrous centaur, which is a mecha, works because people understand what it is right now. People understand it, people get it. The normies, the casuals, everyone gets it, right? It works in your brain. The other thing doesn't make any sense. It's just weird, right? And I think that's honestly probably the biggest factor for uglification today, is that everyone is so focused on making it weird, making it be unique. Oh, this is new, different. Look at me, I am fresh, right? But what people actually want, especially in video games, because it has to be quick and fast and so on, right, to understand stuff, is just ordinary stuff, ordinary beauty, standardized beauty, beauty that the brain understands, you know, immediately. Yeah, it's much preferred, because in a video game, even more so than normal art, right, like a painting, you have to also play the game, right? So in a beautiful painting, if the painting is very abstract, it works better than a video game. A very abstract art in a video game that still has like normal game mechanics is hard to play, right? You know, or for example, we had Hellblade coming out like 2 years ago. That game has like no gameplay at all, right? It's just an abstract art right there. It's just a movie, right? You know, but that doesn't make a good video game. It doesn't make a good video game. A video game has to also have good gameplay, right? So if the game has good gameplay, but everything in the art is very abstract, it's very ugly, it's very you know, against beauty, you're just gonna make the game harder to play because your brain can't understand it. It's like nothing in reality looks like this. You know, you can't relate to stuff in the game, right? It makes it confusing, makes the game harder to play, right? So that's a big issue I feel in a lot of games, right? And not only does it make the gameplay worse and so on, but I think it's really, really cluttery, I guess, in a lot of games. Another good example of that is Hestia, I think, for example, in Hades 2. Terrible art. Hades 2, I really like the game, right? It's a great game, but man, the god art in the game is so bad, and of course it's vocal, whatever. But Hestia is a good example of this is just terrible game design, because it's just too much stuff happening in that image. So you like, I don't know where my eyes should go. It's just all over the place. So you get confused, right? Now in that game it works, luckily for them, so to speak, because their gods are very off-shot for the gameplay, right? You go up to a god boon, talk to the god, you get the power up, and then you can, you know, go and fight, right? So in that game you can see how ugliness and clutterness and shit can actually still work, because it's like detached from the actual gameplay, right? So you have the fights, then you have the fights, and the fights are kind of clean to some extent, and then after the fight you have the super ugly art that makes you really confused, and then you have another fight, right? So because the ugly art is very detached from the actual gameplay, which it really is, right? It's a different thing. Then it actually kind of works, right, in that sense, right? But I still prefer, of course, it looks better. But it isn't worse if you really detach it. But imagine if you had that kind of cluttered art like Hestia's face during the fights, right? It would be a much harder game. And I see people complain about the last boss in that game, that the last boss is too cluttery. And I don't think the boss is very hard now. I've played that many times, but I give some example there. The issue with the last boss is that his abilities have the same color as the floor, basically. I would say mostly, yeah. So I understand people come from, because it's like I don't think it's that bad, but it's like I see what you're mentioning, because like sometimes it's hard to spot the abilities because they have the exact same magic, and then his second phase it's a lot of enemies summoned that also have the same like bronze color thing. So it's like 3 different stuff with like bronze yellow colors, and it can definitely be hard to like see kind of what is what, right? That being said, though, I never felt it was an issue, honestly, because when you get to phase 2, you nuke him and win. So, yeah, honestly, I never got the honestly, I use brute force him in the tech always, so I don't understand people's issue in that sense, because if you get to that phase, you basically probably can like one-shot him. So I'm a little bit like, honestly, I think people have the wrong build, to be fair, for that game, because if you have high enough DPS, it doesn't really matter. But I see people coming from. It's not the worst example in my life, but it's a good example of what I mean, cluttering. Where it's like, it's like 3 different things that have the same color on the same thing. The boss was kind of weird, and yeah, it has an issue. But it could be worse. I mean, the game could be way worse if, like I said, because of all the god art in that game, especially a few of them, Hestia and so on, that are very, very bad. If they combine that with the actual gameplay, it would be terrible, right? But that's of course what you see with, for example, then of course Suicide Squad. That game is super bad, looks incredibly ugly, it's cluttery, weird animations, everything, and again, then really weird models for the characters. I mean, honestly, I'll say that lastly in this video, guys. Hope you can subscribe, press the like button, so on, right? But for example, Harley Quinn was terrible in that video game too, right? I never talked about the game before here on the channel because I just think the game is so bad. I want to talk about it, but it has incredibly bad art. Yeah, Harley Quinn is just bad, right? And I like Harley Quinn. I love Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, like her own TV show. It's a great TV show. And so on. I like Harley Quinn as a character. She definitely, as a character, is probably overplayed by now. Kind of like Wolverine has been everything because that's the everyone's favorite character. I agree with that. She might be a little bloated, right? Like she's in so much stuff. But for example, I am looking forward a lot to the Isekai, right? Harley Quinn Isekai, or Suicide, but mostly Harley Quinn. And it's written by, of course, the Zero authors and so on. I think they look awesome, right? It's like a Japanese take on these characters. So they're all gonna look like this. Yeah, they're gonna have this body shape, right? No, but that looks great, right? So I like Harley Quinn, but when I look at, for example, this game, of course, I guess similar, right? Yeah, she's uglified. She's really ugly. That is probably the worst Harley Quinn I've seen in years, right? She looks worse than like 10 years. You can play, Batman Arkham Asylum games, like, with Harley Quinn and so on, and older games or whatever, Harley Quinn. She looks way better, right? Yeah, like, it's a good stuff. Why is the game so ugly for? But like I said, I really do think it boils down to an uglification of the world that they want, right? Because it isn't just the waifus or whatever, right? Or the men or whatever. It isn't just these things looking ugly. Look at the monster of that game. They're all terrible. Yeah, they're cluttery. They're disgusting. You know what I mean, it's so unclear. One reason why the game sucks so much is because everything looks like kind of meh, right? That's what I mean. It's like the whole game is ugly. You have to understand that it isn't just the wife who's getting ugly; it's everything, right? And I think Suicide Squad is like an example of that. Yeah, everything in the game is ugly. The guys are ugly. Harley Quinn is ugly. Batman is ugly. Everything in the game is just ugly, right? Yeah, it's a perfect example of hatred for beauty and symmetry, and just like, no, we're just gonna have everything's being ugly. It's a terrible game in every aspect. So even knowing that, I still believe that the Mr.Freeze image for the first seconds were fake. Yeah, but it was so incredibly boring. It's just a boring, it's an incredibly boring, lifeless looking character. I guess it's Frozen. So I was like, oh, really? And then it took me like, oh my god, it can't be real. Someone probably made it. It's like, wait, is it real? It was a little bit like, yeah, it's like took me like a minute to be like, wait, is this actually how ugly it is? It's even ugly than Harley Quinn, But I guess you don't want to believe that. You're like, I don't want to believe it. This is real. It can't be real. I don't want it to be real. And guys, hope you the video, subscribe, and have a great day.